Okay, so the second question that we have to deal with is right here. Within the Web CPT group, was there any difference between men and women in scores on the BDI2? Again, use an independent samples t-test. But what's a little bit different this time is that we're going to be looking at men and women, but only in the Web CBT group. So what we're going to have to do is to pick out and select only the data that are relevant to the Web CBT group. We're going to completely ignore the control group. Okay, so let's head back to our SPSS worksheet, and there it is. And so to do this in SPSS, basically we're going to go under data, okay, and we're going to select cases. And the easiest way to do this is to say if condition is satisfied. Make sure that you're choosing the group variable, because we're just going to select the CBT group. So if the condition is satisfied, and then click if, okay, and then you can click on group, pass it over into the dialog box, and it'll say if group equals 1. Okay, so that little bit of instruction to SPSS is basically telling SPSS choose only the CBT group, the intervention group. Ignore all the cases from the control group. So if group equals 1, it's going to be selected. So I hit continue. It confirms for me right here that I have a conditional statement for including data. And I click OK. And what I want you to do is watch over in this column, this gray column here. Watch what happens. So I click on that, and you can't really see it. You will in a second. When you come down here under group, there are a whole bunch of cases that have been now eliminated. See this line going across the top? Okay, anytime SPSS now detects a 2, right, in the group variable, it's going to strike that from the active data set. So we're essentially taking a subset of the full worksheet. So you'll notice that if the value is 1, that goes all the way down here to case 50, that there's no strike through line. That means that that particular case is available for analysis. And now what we're going to do is just what we did before. So I'm going to analyze, compare means, independent samples t-test. Okay, and here we have already, it's still in here from the last analysis, BDI2 outcome. That's great. We got to change this though. That's the group variable. That's not what we want. We want biological sex. So we put that over, and now SPSS says, okay, tell me what the groups are. And again, we coded males as 1, females as 2. So when I define the groups, I'm just going to leave it the way it was, 1 and 2, except that now 1 means males, 2 means females. I hit continue. And now we're all ready to go for the independent samples t-test. So I click OK. Up comes my printout in SPSS. And again, let's walk through. So there's some syntax up here to remind you what you did. Okay, it's saying, okay, this is a t-test of groups on biological sex with the values of 1 and 2 identifying the groups. The variable that we're looking at is BDI2. Okay, we come down here to BDI2, males, females. There's 25 now in each group, and you'll notice that the males have a lower mean score than the females, which is interesting, right? Because what that's saying is, given the way that the BDI is scored, that the males looked slightly less depressed on average in terms of their ratings than the females did. Now, is that a big enough difference to be statistically significant? We don't know. The standard deviation is still pretty big, and the standard error of the mean is still pretty big. Okay, so we come down here. Again, we're testing that first parametric assumption, equality of variance. We find that the value for the p-value for Levine's test is 0.469. That is greater than 0.05. So we feel pretty confident that we can assume equal variances. So then we move straight across this top row and we look at the t-test for equality of means. And the t is negative 1.081. Degrees of freedom are 48. And the significance is 0.285. So again, we're getting a non-significant result. Okay? This value would have to be under 0.05 for us to begin to get excited. And so what this is telling us is that we failed to reject the null hypothesis. As far as we can tell, any difference here in the means between men and women could be due to randomness, chance, measurement error, and so forth. But there's not enough of a difference here for us to conclude that these samples of males and females are drawn from different populations. Okay? In other words, if this mean difference was really, really big, that would make us think, well, hold it, maybe the treatment worked, for example, for males, but not for females. In which case, the males are drawn from a different population from females. They're drawn from a population in which the treatment worked. So, but we don't have enough evidence here to suggest otherwise. So, we're going to write this up very much the way we did the other sentence, okay? So let's, this gets us a little bit lower. Can I move that at all? Let me just move this up just a little bit. Maybe that'll help. Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, so what I would write here, again, very concise sentence. Similarly, in independent samples t-test comparing men and women in the web CBT group found no mean, no statistically significant difference in BDI 2 scores. And now I need to enter in the result. So this is T, and then I look at my degrees of freedom, which is right here, 48, equals, and here's the actual value. And again, it's negative because we're kind of looking at this from the first group's perspective, and the first group, the males, have a mean score that is lower than the females, so you get a negative T. So it's negative 1.08. Okay. Probability of that occurring by chance or measurement error, 0.29, right? Because this is 0.285. Okay. Now again, I'm just going to go NS. Okay. Now APA formatting has some of these being italicized, and so I'm going to go back through now and correct that. So the T gets italicized, the NS gets italicized. And I'm going to go back up here since I moved everything over into Word from my memo pad in the last video. And I'm just going to correct right there. And so now we're building up the paragraph. See how very tight and concise it is? You're telling the reader exactly what you found. There's no interpretation in the results section. You're just telling the reader what you have found. And so the interpretation comes in the discussion later. Okay? But for now, I just want you writing result sections that are tight and concise like that. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to the third video.